Today is Wednesday, July 2nd. We're going to try to do a quick recap of today's trades, trading the futures based on price action in the SPY. So we're looking at a daily chart of the SPY now, and they continue to grind higher. Now, this is a holiday week. The market's closed Friday for the Independence Day holiday. So they typically tend to slow down, volume dries up, and the path of least resistance on low volume is usually up. So today was kind of slow, but they closed pretty strong on the day. So where are they going? I'll come back to this chart and give you a zone higher up that they may be targeting tomorrow, which is really the end of the week since the market's closed on Friday. Or they could get there next week, but we'll talk about that in a minute. First, I want to show you the levels that were posted this morning, or at least they were made available to subscribers. So here are the levels. There's a zone up here. That's the blue colored levels. And this other color, lighter blue here, italicized 616.92, is explained in the game plan. That was an axis point that the bulls need to get on top of to go higher. And if they got below, which never happened, then the bears could have had control. So it wasn't a tradable level. So I talked about that right off the bat. So you can read through these notes to know what we had going into the morning, this morning, trading the futures. And as you know, if you've been following along for any period of time, we trade the E-mini futures based on what the SPY does. So we talked about this 616.92 down here, this lighter blue line, that's being an axis level or an axis point. And while they did bounce off of it, they came down after 9:45, they were above it and kept going higher. So I would not have traded this anyway, even if they did bounce off of this, because I just want to see if the bulls could sustain closes above it, and they did. Now, you could have maybe jumped on board if you were adventurous and rode this thing up, because the bulls were giving you an early clue that they were in charge. Never got below this. That's pretty important. So they went up to 618.96. If you're playing by the rules, you'd adjust this down to 618.91. That's 5 cents toward price. Trigger the trade. You're looking for a base hit of 4 points down here somewhere. They gave it to you and then some. I got this trade in the bag myself. I'll show you the recording of that in a minute. 4 points, pretty easy. So here's the original level, 618.96. So they did get above it here and spent some time before they came back. It had been over 20 minutes. So I would consider taking a recycle trade. However, if you adjusted the level 5 cents toward price, bought here, expecting a base hit of 4 points, they came up several times within 10 cents of where your 4-point base hit profit target would be. That's a near miss of the profit objective. Not sure if they're giving you the trade. Like, basically my thought in this would be, I'm not sure if that was a trade, I missed it, and that's all they can do, or they're going to go down from here. So the safe thing to do is just jump out at a wash when you have the chance, when they're back at break even. I never messed around with this, so it was a non-factor for me. But anyway, at least one good trade there, and they came up to 619.96. So 619.91 would be what we want to trigger the trade at. But look what they did here for quite a while. So 20 cents below that operating level, 619.71. You can make the case for that much longer than 20 minutes. It starts around 1:30 or so, all the way up till 2:30. Over an hour, they start going up. This is a consolidation. I call it kind of a 20-20 rule. So if they consolidate within 20 cents or at least 20 cents for 20 minutes or longer, that's an indication you might not want to trust the level. They did react. The level was important. They came down, but not enough for a base hit. So if you ignored the level based on this rule here, it's one of the rules, then this would have been a no trade. You would have waited all day for price to hit this, expecting a counter trend trade in the other direction, a counter trend bounce down. But based on what the market's telling you, you wouldn't have traded this, and that would have been the best thing or the safe thing to do, because they never came down far enough for a base hit, and they went higher. And they almost came up to 620.50, I think 1 penny shy of this. So not that you're going to trade this because of the time of day. It's definitely within 30 minutes of the closing bell. It's the last minute or so. But they had a little reaction right off that. I'm not sure what they're doing right now. Let's just look at the 24-hour session. See what the price is doing with the levels. Little shimmy here, got above. So they're kind of bouncing around 620.46. So what is the target on the upside? I'll talk about that in a minute when we get back to the daily chart. First, we'll look at the trade that I took. You can see the time, the lower right-hand corner. I always have a clock running, at least when I remember to put it on there. So didn't trade 619.92, or sorry, 616.92. And I didn't jump on board and ride this thing up. Like I said, an adventurous trader could have done that. That's not the way I like to trade these levels, but they are good clues sometimes to tell you what the general sentiment might be, at least in the morning session, and today worked pretty well. As I said in the game plan, if they stay above 616.92, the bulls are in charge. Anyway, I went short at 618.95, which is just a penny under the level from the morning. My operating level was 618.95. So here's short 6 contracts, and they were nice enough to give me my 4 points pretty quickly right there. And then that's it. I'm not going to trade that level on the short side anymore and let it go. They got above. I'll just scrub ahead here just to show you. I let this thing go for the rest of the day. I just wanted to see what they would do toward the end of the day, because I was curious. Since I have this recorded, I'll just share it with you. So when they got to 619.96, I really wasn't involved in the market, but wouldn't have traded anyway. But you'll see that I left it alone. Just this recording just runs throughout the end of the day until 4 o'clock. So that was my one trade in the morning. And here is how today pans out on the logs. The first one is the playing by the rules log. Here's your 4-point base hit on that one level, and the other 2 were not triggered for the reasons stated below, as we've covered. And then my trade here was the same thing, just played by the rules, 4 points on 6 contracts, $1,200 before commissions. Back to the daily chart. I'm going to show you one thing here. We talked about this once or twice before. You can make a case that this is a pivot high here, whenever this was, December of 24. And here is the most recent pivot high here. And we talked about this one. That came into play. Good enough. Maybe it'll come into play later down the road if price comes back down, or I should say when price comes back down. But this trend line here could be part of a longer term target, which I'm not going to tell you how I'm going to calculate it, but let's just say between 621.30 and 621.40, kind of a small 10-cent zone, 10 or 15 cent zone. I'll have that refined in the morning, but I'll go ahead and put that on the chart right now just to show you what that looks like. So it's such a small zone between 621.30 and 621.40 that I've zoomed in here on a 10-minute chart just to show you what that might look like. We'll see if I'm right tomorrow. I'll just go back to a daily chart, just kind of up here. This could be a target. Now they could spike above it. It would not be too surprising if we see a pullback of some sort. At least they stall out in that area. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. Effectively, tomorrow is the last day of this week, and trading will resume Monday morning or Sunday night for the futures. But I'll be back tomorrow morning to identify fresh levels to trade against during the day, and those levels should be more precise. But I'm going to go ahead and give you this zone right now. There you go, 621.30 and 621.40. Let's see what happens with that tomorrow. In the meantime, thanks so much for watching. I hope you find value in these videos. If you think having things like these game plans will help you in your trading, head over to Ticks&Trades.com to learn how you can get these levels yourself each morning. I make them for myself anyway. They help me, so you might as well grab them if you want to see returns like I'm getting. One more time, here are my returns over time. Well, at least this is 2025. I'll just let you look at the whole year. And if you go back to look at any of the older videos posted this year, you will see these trades recorded live, all the ones that are highlighted, these profit and loss numbers here on the right, based on number of contracts. I guess I went too far here. All right, there we go. So we're in July. We're just going to keep it right here and continue throughout the year. But anyway, thanks again for watching. I'll talk to you in the next recap video. Have a great rest of your day.